I wanted to start with Klay Thompson tonight because you saw an interesting battle take place between him and Dillon Brooks. And they're two guys that have been maligned in some ways by their own fan base, but at the same time loved by their own fan base. Now, for both of them, it's for different reasons, because for Klay, it's because he just hasn't demonstrated that he's the same guy since his injury, at least not yet. But for Dillon Brooks, it's kind of like consistently, he's just been a kind of a wild card, a guy that looks amazing one night and terrible the next, a textbook good play, bad play guy. But since Klay's come back from his injury, he's been inconsistent. I'd give him a ton of slack. You've been away from the game of basketball for 2 years. It's just really hard to get that rhythm and flow back. But one of the important things with Klay that I've appreciated as he's struggled through this stretch, as he's missed a boatload of shots, as the fan base has been critical of him, what I have appreciated is he hasn't lost his audacity. And there's value in audacity because the NBA playoffs are as stressful and high pressure as any basketball environment can get. And there are a lot of guys who simply don't want to shoot. They don't want to be held accountable for the result of a shot. And you've seen so many players over the years absolutely crumble in this environment. We saw Matisse Thybulle, a really talented young player for the Philadelphia 76ers, just completely combust under the pressure of being expected to knock down spot-up threes. And both of these guys have significantly more responsibility. You need guys that are just a little bit unhinged with their shot selection, that aren't scared. And you understand that there's a downside. You understand that there's going to be shots from Klay that don't make any sense. You understand that there are going to be games where Klay Thompson goes out and takes incredibly difficult shots, and it ends up hurting the team. But you also know that you can have a night like tonight, when Jordan Poole can't make anything, when Steph Curry can't make anything, when Andrew Wiggins starts 1 for 7, and you just need somebody to make something happen. And Klay Thompson, who's never scared, who has that audacity, just continually keeps chipping away at that wall. And he had a huge game in a moment where his team absolutely needed it. You know, the Warriors have, they had a specific set of tasks that they needed to accomplish tonight. And we talked about all of those after Game 5. The reason why they lost Game 5 is they're the veteran team that went on the road against a young, super athletic team that was desperate. And in that environment, feeding off of their home crowd, especially with all of their physical advantages, they were able to bludgeon Golden State in a lot of very specific ways. Transition, on the glass, defensively, just sitting in a stance and containing ball handlers. And I talked about a lot of different things that were going to be important tonight coming into this game. Because the truth of the matter is Golden State is so much more skilled than Memphis in this environment, in half-court sets. When everyone's in their position and you need to create shots, Golden State just has so much more that they can go to. A guy like Dillon Brooks on Golden State would never shoot the ball because there's just more skilled players on the floor. But the problem is I talk all the time on the show about swing factors. Swing factors are the things that take place in a basketball game that are outside of the static half-court environment. And those things, they're like special teams in football. They are the kinds of things that can swing a game one way or another. And transition is one of them. Turning the ball over is one of them. Offensive rebounding is one of them. Scheming and coaching is one of them. There's a ton of these types of elements. The foul calling, for free throw shooting. There's a million things that can come into a game that can swing it one way or another. And, Golden State came in tonight and they tightened up a lot of things. They actually flipped the offensive rebounding script completely on Memphis and dominated them on the offensive glass tonight, which was something that they did really well games 1 through 4, and then they just completely lost control of in Game 5. They did a much better job in their own defense, of containing ball handlers and just sitting in a stance and doing the things that they needed to do. They did a lot of things well. But there were two things that they did poorly that I thought were the reason why this game almost got away from them. One, They did not apply enough rim pressure. I talked a lot about after the last game that one of the most important things that they had to do tonight was get guys like Jordan Poole, guys like Steph Curry downhill, beating people off the dribble. And they did a little bit in the fourth quarter. There were a couple plays where Jordan Poole got in the lane, missed layups, but guys were there for offensive rebounds. Steph had a huge driving play past Desmond Bane. So they did a little bit in the fourth quarter, but the reason why the game was so close throughout was they weren't getting the same high-quality shots that they always get when they are putting their head down and getting to the basket. When they, mess around on the perimeter, that's when bad things happen. And then the second big thing was turnovers. They were throwing the ball all over the court tonight. And this has been a consistent issue throughout the Golden State era, as many of you Warriors fans know. But I don't think people realize specifically how damaging live ball turnovers are. So to give you an example, because there's two sides to this. On live ball turnovers in this playoff run that lead to a transition opportunity, Golden State is giving up 1.35 points per possession in this playoff run. So 135 points per 100 possessions, if you prefer to hear it that way. But it's not just that. It's giving up the shot attempt. So let's say that you expect on a Golden State half-court possession in the playoffs to score 1 point per possession, just to make the math easy. That means every turnover is effectively almost a 2.5 point swing. Because not only are you not getting a shot attempt, but Memphis is running it right down the other way. And in this playoff run, you've been giving up almost 1.5 points per transition live ball turnover. That's how damaging those plays are. And it's not hard to figure out. Typically speaking, when you turn the ball over on a back cut or driving to the basket or throwing a cross-court pass, the guy who gets the steal typically has a head of steam because he's hawking to the ball. The defense is set up in a way where they start sprinting the other way almost before you can turn around and kind of figure out what's happening. Transition defense is really hard. Look at how athletic Boston is and how much they've struggled with transition defense in this entire playoff run. You have to take care of the basketball because if you don't, it gives Memphis a swing opportunity. If you can keep the game in the half court, you are the better, more skilled team. You are a better defensive team, too, when you're dialed in the way that Golden State can get at times. And so it's so important that you don't toss Memphis opportunities like that. There was other swing factors, like Dillon Brooks just had one of those nights where everything was working. He's hitting step-back threes. He's getting into the lane. There is value in having a guy that big, 6'5", 6'6", strong, that can put the ball on the floor and shoot from different spots on the floor, especially when that audacity comes into play. Because that audacity is what gives him the lack of fear to think that might not be a good shot. And on a night like tonight, it almost carried Memphis to the finish line. And I don't think people realize the stakes. If Golden State had lost that game, they would very likely have lost in Game 7. There was some matchup stuff that was starting to wear on them, specifically with size and athleticism. And Golden State, to their credit, they made enough plays down the stretch to not let that happen. Steph, we're going to talk about Steph here in just a minute because there's a big task laying in front of Golden State and a big task laying in front of Steph, specifically with some matchup stuff that we'll talk about when we bring Carson on. But consistently, not just in this series, but throughout this whole playoff run, even on bad nights, he's had the fortitude to make the important plays at the end of the game. And ironically, in almost every situation in this playoff run, it's been getting to the basket. The two shots that got Steph going tonight were a play where he drove into the lane, and I can't remember who was guarding him. It might have been Desmond Bane, but kind of hit with the shoulder, got that little bit of space right at the charge circle, and made like a little fadeaway 7-footer. Again, it's a jump shot, but a wide open 7-footer for Steph, he's going to make 80% of the time. And then the next trip down, he drove all the way to the rim and finished. There are a lot of guys in this league that when they aren't making their jump shots, they combust. They feel like it's not their night. They want to pound their head into the brick wall, meaning all they want to do is keep taking jump shots. Steph's been there and he's done that. He's had enough bad shooting nights to know that, especially with him and all the impact that he has, the biggest play of the game, that dunk at the end that kind of iced it, the dunk that Draymond had, it's Steph just faking a step back three And when he faked a step back three, Kevon Looney's man helped out of the weak side corner. He just dropped it over the top to Looney. Looney just kind of made a little bounce pass to Draymond in the lane, and it's a dunk. Those are little things that aren't going to show in the box score for Steph Curry, but they are part of his impact on winning. And to Steph's credit, he's always understood that his jump shot is not reliable. Even at his best, he's capable of having 1 for 10 nights or 2 for 10 nights. And he knows that that's not exactly a night in, night out type of thing. And he has to impact winning in different ways. And consistently in this playoff run, whenever he has had poor shooting nights, he has made big plays at the end of the game to help his team win. And that's the mark of a champion. That's a mark of a guy that I think has been the second best player of this era. And it's a mark of a guy that I think it's not a coincidence that he's won as often as he has. Big win for Golden State, though. I don't think people realize anywhere near how much trouble they were in there, trailing in the fourth quarter in Game 6, facing a Game 7 in Memphis.